Right, okay, so just a bit of ad hoc video quickly, just to talk about pricing. So I thought I'd do this as I'm working on this latest commission, because it just gives me something to do and for my hands to do. Pricing is quite a minefield, to be honest. There are lots of things to consider, lots of things to think about, and there are an awful lot of different price ranges out there, if you like. My first tip would be to do some research. So have a look at artists who have got a similar style to you. Bear in mind their experience and how long they have been providing commission work for, because that is going to make a difference. Some artists are very canny and business minded, and they start their commission work and they increase their prices as their demand increases. That is the way to go. A lot of people are very, very scared of upping their prices because they think that they will lose their, they'll lose out on commissions, and they'll think that people won't come to them. And there are many, 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 many artists who have got that mindset and that real feeling of, they're just too scared to put their prices up. You might look at some artists and they'll provide an A4 and it will be something like £70 or something like that. If they're happy with that and they can live with that, then it's I don't mean to be rude, but more fool them. If they want to be producing a coloured pencil portrait for £70, or let them go ahead. There are some people who feel that that is going to affect them. So there are some people who have the mindset that anybody who is selling a coloured pencil portrait for £70 is going to end up taking all of the people who want a commission doing, even if the other artist's portrait is going to cost them £600. They feel that actually, they're selling it cheaply, so it's going to affect me. People aren't going to come to me because they're going to want a cheap portrait. And I have to say that is complete and utter nonsense. Somebody who is buying or would buy a £70 portrait obviously isn't going to buy a £500 portrait. Somebody who would buy a £500 portrait will not even consider buying a £70 portrait, even if the quality is exactly the same. It's a psychology thing. It is it's how people perceive things. Somebody who would be willing to pay £500 is going to think that a £70 portrait is cheap and that there's something wrong with it, and they will not buy it. So that kind of thought that people selling portraits cheaply are affecting those who are charging more is total rubbish. The next thing to think about is who is your target audience? Who are you currently targeting? Because if you have got a lot of people who are, if you've got a lot of young people following your social media pages, they're not going to have money to buy a portrait, and what you'll probably end up having is a lot of messages going, can you draw my pet, can you draw my horse, can you draw my dog, for free. You're not targeting the right people. So that's something that you have to think about, is who you're targeting. So coming through into specific prices, so I'll talk you through how I set my prices first and then raise them. So when I started to do portrait commissions in 2016, when I first started drawing, the first few commissions I gave away because it was just like, God, nobody wants to buy, why would anybody pay for my work? That's just crazy. I then started to get people going, no, hang on a second, we need to give you something, we need to pay something. So I think I charged 40 quid or something like that, for a portrait. I didn't have them mounted or anything like that. I just sent it in an envelope. And then I started to get more and more and more commissions. And I priced my A4 at £85, and I priced my A3 at £110. Bearing in mind I've been drawing 4 or 5 months. And then I made the decision that I was going to go full time, because I had a lot of commissions on my book. So I decided I was going to go full time. I worked out how much I needed each month to be able to cover my mortgage. How many commissions I would need to take at a certain price. And then I also, and this goes back to creating my big plan and all that type of stuff. But I also worked out where do I want to be? What price do I want? What price would I be really, really happy doing and having? So the beginning of January 2017, I upped my prices. I've never had a huge range of sizes. I think my smallest size, I ended up doing something like a 12 by 14 or 12 by 15 or something like that. So it wasn't particularly small. And I charged that at £250. So I literally went from 110 to 250. And I put that on my website, and my other prices just went up a little bit from that. And if I was going to do multiple portraits, so multiple animals in one portrait, I would add a percentage on. So I think I started at something like, I'd add an extra 50 quid or something on. Now, if I'm doing a 2-dog portrait, I'll charge the full price for the first one, and then I'll charge 50% for the second, which is a bit crazy really, because they're getting 2 portraits in one, but that's how a lot of people do it. Okay, so that's what I did. I then, every time I had 3 months of full commission books. Now, your full commission book is going to be personal to you. For me, I was taking on 7 to 8 commissions a month. And as soon as I had 3 months booked full, so that's what, 28 portraits or whatever, I would up my price. And I would up my price by 20%. And then again, next time I had 3 months full books, I would up my price again. So my prices just increased and increased and increased. And when I got to I think it was the 450 mark, that's when I started to be at my busiest. Because what had happened was I was hitting a completely different demographic. I was hitting the people, or I was targeting the people who had disposable income. Those people who wouldn't, even consider buying a £70 portrait, but thought £500 was a deposit, not the whole price. So that was quite a big light bulb moment for me, understanding that the more you up your prices, the more you change your demographic and your target audience, and that just, it kind of went from there. And it got to the point where I ended up closing my commission books, because I'd got over a year's worth of commissions booked in, and actually, yeah, it's fantastic, it's wonderful. It's really scary. It's really scary because I was hanging on to 25% of people's money. What happens if I'm ill? What happens if I can't do their portraits? And there's a lot of this sort of what if. And I was like, I'm not comfortable actually holding all of that money. Well, I wasn't holding it. It was it was being used, and I wasn't comfortable about that at all. So that's when I made the decision to close my to close my books. And at that point, my prices were at sort of, they start at 500 now for 10 by 12. And what tends to happen is that if you've got three, so I think I've got 3 or 4 sizes. What tends to happen is now that people will come to me and they'll go, oh, right, okay, so your 10 by 12 is 500. So I'll go for the, the 13 by 15, say, that is 750. I'll have that one, please. Because for them, £150 jump from the 500 isn't, it's like a no-brainer. Well, I'll just have a bigger one because it's only £150, and it's like, whoa, right, okay. So a lot of my portraits now are, so the big horse that I just did, that was 1,000. The 4 dogs that I did, that was 1,200, which actually, oh God, dog's gone mad. I'd given her a discount on that because I've already done 2 portraits for her. But people, and it's mad. And you just think, you send the quote out and they come back and go, yeah, here's your deposit, and you're like, what? It's madness, absolute utter madness. But it's that demographic that is happy to pay that because that's what they want. So I would say either look at what you're wanting to earn and aim towards that. Look at how much you actually want to earn an hour, because half the time I earn about 10p an hour because I spend so damn long on my pieces. No, that's a lie. But look at how much you want to earn an hour. So if you're wanting to earn £20 an hour and your portrait is going to take you 10 hours to complete, well, then you have to work out, that actually you need to sell that portrait for £200, or, actually if it's going to take you 40 hours and you're wanting to earn, £20 an hour, well, then you'll need to, you need to be selling your portraits for 800, or working towards selling them for that amount. That's what you've got to try and do. The other thing that I would also do when you're just starting out is think about the hourly rate that you want, and really try not to go beyond the below the minimum wage. I see some people who are 20 quid for a pencil portrait fully framed, and I'm like, what? How on earth can you be making anything from that? You must be making about 2p. And it's not affecting me, so I don't care if that's what they want to do. But it's just like, oh my goodness, you are so underselling yourself and undervaluing yourself, and that's what's sad and frustrating, is to see really, really talented people just not selling themselves. Bear in mind when you are figuring out your price, bear in mind the materials that you're using. Now I'll show you the pencil because it's absolutely minute. I've just finished that black Labrador. Oh, I probably can't find it now. I don't see it. I've just finished the black Labrador. The 3 black Labradors, which didn't have any detail, but there was a lot of black, and there was a lot of Mars black. And this is one of my light fast pencils now that I use throughout that. I did have to sharpen it quite a bit because me, I don't really use an awful lot of sharp pencils, but on this one I did have to sharpen it. And actually my black and my Mars black in the light fast, the Mars black kept breaking, which is a bit frustrating. So my Mars black is about this big, but bear in mind every portrait you do, look at replacing all of those pencils that you've used. So if you've used 10 polychromos and they are £1.75, look at including that £17.50 or whatever, or if I get my maths wrong, please don't sort of say anything, because my maths is really, really not a strong point at all. I still have to use my fingers to add up. But include all of those pencils that you've used even if you don't, replace them, include that in your price. So you could start with that as your base. So okay, so I need to include 20 quid for my pencils to replace them all. I bought a piece of pastel mat board that's cost me 9 quid. So that's £29 already. And then you add your time onto that. And then once you start working as a business, you might want to factor in electricity, rent, blah, 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 all that type of stuff. For me, it was just, I got a figure in my mind. I wanted my pieces to start at £500, and that's where I've got. I've got to a point now where I'm fully booked until next March. I closed my books, I think, at the end of the year, this last year. And I've got 170 people on my subscription wait list. Now, I'm not, people go, oh my God, that's like 3 years, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but you've got 170 people on your subscription wait list. Not everybody's going to buy a portrait from you. You will probably, if you're lucky, 2% of those people will buy a portrait, if that. But it's nice knowing that there's a list of people who really like your work, and that was quite a good. We can chat about that another time, but that was quite a good marketing sort of technique. Not that I tend to do things not realizing that they'll work in the way that they work, and then go, oh, that worked really well. I'll put that in my marketing book. So yeah, I would research the people who are similar to you. You will find that there are people who are charging like, oh my goodness, a huge amount. You will find people who aren't charging very much at all, and then you'll find the middle ground, and it's up to you where you want to be. And I would start not too low. Be honest about your work. If you're comparing, so like me, so if I, or maybe where I was sort of back in 2017, if I was comparing myself to sort of, somebody who had been, a commissioned artist for years, and they were charging £900 for a portrait. If I'd have gone in 2017 having 6 months experience of actually drawing, and started charging £900, I'm not sure that I would have got very many commissions, to be honest. So starting at a place where you feel comfortable, but with a plan to increase your prices, I think is a good thing to do. But just bear in mind your materials and all that type of stuff. And if you're, I include a amount in mine, and I also include postage now in mine, unless it's sort of overseas. But don't sell yourself short, because it's, you're worth so much more. And always have a figure in mind and a plan to start upping your work. And then of course the other thing is, I think it's it's a tricky one, as to, you've got to think about where you're going to put these items and all that type of stuff. Where are you going to actually publicize what your prices are? So do they put them on your website? And I know, Fergus, you were saying that you haven't sort of got social media pages yet. Well, and I know you said that you want to be a tattoo artist and you're just kind of doing this on the side, which is absolutely fantastic. But maybe you could combine the two, and actually maybe having a social presence is a good thing to do. With pricing, But personally, I get really, really frustrated if I'm looking for something and I go onto somebody's website and they don't have everything there, and then I've got a little button that says contact me for prices. Well, they've lost me completely. They've lost my sale, I'm afraid. I'm not interested in contacting somebody to find out what the prices are. I want to see it there and then. So I wouldn't go any further with that, you know, and I'm not quite sure why people are there's a bit of a stigma about pricing and where you put it. You know, just be proud of what you're doing, and you know, get it up there, put it somewhere where somebody can see it. Mine are all on my website, very clear. If somebody asks me for prices, I send them a link to my website. You know, job done. Brilliant. So I hope that's been useful. If you've got any questions or anything, you know, we can have a chat about that anyway. I have to admit, I'm quite liking this. I was a bit scared of the Discord channel to begin with, and I was like, oh, I don't know how to use it. And it's basically just chatting away, isn't it? So it's another thing for me to do instead of work, which is it's quite nice actually. Anyway, so if you've got any questions, let me know.